going to use this time to reflect on this past year. I haven't actually been reflecting it from a vulnerable perspective where I tell people how I feel. And I feel like this is the right time to tell people exactly what's going on with me, what's going on with us, and the transformations, a change of perspective of what we go through from a day to day. The one thing that I want to take massive flowers for both of us are the amount of times us have to go through periods of transformations, shifts, shedding of the skin, having to ground on a day-to-day basis, and having to deal with energies that are, for us, can be challenging at times, but as well as fulfilling. But you can still have both because of the situation, especially when it comes to different clientele, having to deal with channeling an energy of a client that deals with trauma. It takes a toll out on myself and you, and to be quite frank, we've actually had the time to sort of reflect. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's learning the balancing act of caring for ourselves and showing up for others.
Yeah, especially when it comes to having to not only help people through their own emotions, but us having to process things when we're being present. It's so important because it can take a toll for those who are not in a perspective of being prepared to be ready to ground, being present with their feelings, finding different ways to protect their energy. You know, for anyone, this could be a challenge. And the reason why I'm ready to be vulnerable is because I wasn't vulnerable at the time when I had to go through this from a position where it was challenging at the times. And to be able to articulate that at that specific moment, it wouldn't have been fair for me. It would have been way too vulnerable, in my opinion. I'm ready to say this for both of us. And obviously, I'm going to let you speak about your experiences, but I am so proud of the challenges that we've had to go through, the testing moments that every day had to be a situation of learning and growing. And the process of healing, we're at the beautiful stage of it, but there are perils of that. Is that what you feel?
In a way, I think it's just along the lines of how they say new level, new devil. And so with life, there's always going to have to be something that may challenge you or have a bit of resistance, or you come into a new level, let's say money, and your nervous system isn't like primed for that, and you have to learn to stretch yourself to hold space. So I do understand where you're coming from, where there's a sense of always having to reevaluate yourself and grow.
Exactly, and it was also having to reevaluate even with our own clients, because having the position where we can hold space we've come to that realization that not everyone can have access of us anyway, because there's a difference and a fine line between what is something that we can say this deserves time for to help, and this needs to be a time where we really and truly exercise boundaries. And I think that comes from a day-to-day position of reflecting, a trial basis, shall I say. And one thing I will say as well, something that I've learned, is that you can't serve everybody. Because if you serve or if you help everybody, you help nobody. The one thing I and you, me and you, have realized is being a specialist for this particular space requires knowing who the right people to ultimately help. And at the end of the day, especially when it comes down to removing and adding boundaries to the energy vampires, the people who are in their low vibration, people who actually do not want to have to make these changes and actually want straight up attention, we decide to go, fuck you. Because we've decided to say, you know what, in order for us to help you have order in your life, we've got to have order in ours. And that comes down to self-care, spiritual grounding, making sure that our energies are always the best it can be. And many people who can relate to us, that's a test. That is a test.
1,000,000%. It starts with us first, and as time goes on, we realize life is long, but it's also short. And we spend every moment doing our best to live it in a way that feels right to us. And sometimes that looks like saying no to people. Sometimes it looks like a heck yes to other people. But it's about trusting in the foundations that we're implementing for ourselves, and the same foundations we're telling other people to trust that that is the right way to go.
Because the one thing that we've learned as spiritual specialists is specificity, being specific. And that's something that we are very proud of, because at the end of the day, I would rather pick a handful of people rather than having to help everybody, because you can't give the same energy to everyone, and you can't essentially be in a situation where you are oversaturating your own energy. What I will say is that on a day-to-day basis, especially what we go through, there are times that can be traumatic, dealing with clients that have to deal with trauma. There are times that it can be challenging because with our specific things that we do, it does poses challenges that differ from anyone else, but I have no regrets because it's so fulfilling. Living the life of abundance. Yes, there are perils, but there are also perils in every other aspect in life, but we wouldn't change and swap our lives for no one else.
Agreed.
The one thing that you and me, or we can both agree, is during this time was essentially like every day felt like it was shadow work. But we went through that shadow and we found ourselves through growth. We've loved ourselves even more and we love each other even more. That the most beautiful thing that I will say between the pair of us is that our unity was the reason why we started, and our unity is the reason why things are flourishing, our strengths. But from a day-to-day basis, those who can relate to us, it can be challenging, it can be vulnerable, it can be a situation where it tests yourself, but you wouldn't want to change what you want to do because you love what you do. You appreciate the rain so that you can truly appreciate the sun. And that's my truth. That's my part of me that I haven't told people, that just because I don't show my vulnerabilities, I have vulnerabilities. I have felt the traumatic energies when I channel people, when I go through the moments of having to deal with a person that's experienced something from a childhood memory and having to relive that through trance channeling. And you've had to go through challenges that you have felt triggered because of a certain reading that's happened. Now, we've become stronger.
Yes. Growing together from past versions of ourselves and present moments that can be tough, but we do it together.
We never broke. We were never ever broken. We evolved.
Yes.
And for anybody that goes through the things that we deal with and may feel like you can relate, I guarantee you the version of yourself that you're seeing, you're going to go through evolutions too.
Yes, you will. Because if we can do it, you can too.